Hi and welcome to this video. This is intended for RMIT Industrial Design footwear class as a recap from what we have done in the last week. So what we're going to look at today is how to add in a bit of 3D background to apply to our rendering, how to bring in a HDRI to create a lighting environment so that we can light the scene and modify that. So here I've just got a standard shoe setup and with some packaging, and there's at the moment there's no camera, and if we go and render there's no lighting in this scene. So to start with lighting, what we're going to do is just get an HDRI. So in order to get that, we're just going to go and look at here, Polyhaven. And in Polyhaven, we're going to download an HDR. So if we click here, we can download an HDR. And this is the HDR that I'm going to use for this demo today. So in order to bring the HDRI in, the way that I do it, there's two ways to do it, but the way that I do it is here in the shader editor. What we can do, I'll just turn on my screen keys. What we can do is come here to World. This is where we're going to light up our world scene. We don't need the background. What we're going to do is plug into the world output. If we go Shift A and come to texture, we're going to add an environment texture, which is our HDRI. And we're going to go open and go and find where that is. So for me, that is here, down. Here it is here, and we're going to plug the color into surface, and when we go to render we should get that environment texture appearing in our scene. The other thing that we need to do is to use Node Wrangler to add. So if we go Control T, we can add our mapping, and with our mapping we can rotate our Z, and we can see the lighting rotating around the object and changing the highlight on our shoe, and we can see that effect happening in here. So let's change to Cycles, rendering engine. And now, if we rotate that in Cycles, we can see that adjusting the lighting on our rendering. And if we come to the camera, down to Film, and we turn transparent off, which it won't be on with your default setting, you'll get the background appearing. So here, if we come back up and we put it into EV and we rotate this background, you can see the background of the image and lighting changing to suit that background. And if we come in the render properties and we come down to film, where's it going? We need to go into Cycles. Come down to Film and turn transparent on, then that background disappears, so we won't see it in our rendering. And I think I forgot in class that I had transparent turned on when I was doing my demo. So now we've brought some lighting in, we've got our rendering running. I'm just going to go here to viewport shading. We're going to go to get a background to put into our rendering and environment. And with Quixel Megascans, you can log in with an Epic Games account and set it up with your EDU email address, and you'll be able to access all of these files for free. And what we're going to do is just come to collections, and in collections we're going to say click on environment and go to natural, and then we've got all these natural environments here. For example, there's canyons of Utah, and there are rocks, 3D rocks with textures. There are ground materials that you can apply to a subdivided plane. And yeah, you can go through here and download lots of different things here, like props, like dead trees, all sorts of things, little rocks. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to, for this example, I think I'm using Iceland here. So we're using Iceland textures and materials. And I think I've got some of these Icelandic mossy rocks here. And what we need to do is just click on that. Be mindful of what resolution you actually want. If you just want to have it from afar, bring in a 2K. If it's for a very close-up rendering, bring in the 8K. But to start with, try a 4K asset. Click download. It'll download as a zip file into your on your computer, and you'll need to extract that, and you'll have an FBX, and then you'll also have all of the color maps that you can use Node Wrangler to apply that. I've already downloaded a few, and we'll use those, but you can come in here and look at all of these files and download different ones that might be interesting to you. So back in Blender, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new scene, a new collection. I'm going to name it Rock Background. And I'll have that selected so that when I import my Icelandic rock, it'll come in here. So we'll go File, Import, FBX, and then we'll go to Downloads, and let's get this one here. And what we want is the LOD0. You'll note that's the bigger file size. Here, these are all in kilobytes, this is in megabytes, and go import. Okay, and our rock is imported, and you can see that our shoe has been eaten up by it. So I'm just going to click on the packaging and go to global and pull my shoe up on top of the rock. Just up above it, like that. Okay, so now what we need to do is add our material. So if we come back here into Object, you'll note that there is a principled BSDF. Just delete the normal. Click on the principle, Control-Shift-T, go to where the file is, and what you need to do is you need to bring in the roughness, the displacement. There's two displacements here. One's a JPEG, you'll note how small it is, and one is a EXR, and you'll note that that's a much bigger file. So make an informed choice there for the speed of your computer. We want a normal and match it to the size of the file that we brought in. And then we want the color file, which is the albedo color file here. And let's add that to our principled texture shader, and it will build that out. And now we have the material on our rock. So let's pull that down. Let's come in from the top. Let's look in from the Z. Coming down onto our shoe, and we could grab our packaging and we could move that around, get it to where we want it to be. Have a look at the natural scan of the rock and see where the light is coming from also, which can be important. And depending on how we're going to render this out, we might actually want to sit our object down onto some of the rock face. So let's just put this down this way. Make sure that there's no clipping. Just move it out. So move it across a little. That might be good. Close enough. It's looking alright. Especially if we want to do a render like here, from this direction. Let's turn the rendering engine on. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's look at our lighting. Look at our lighting in our shoe. Let's come back here to Object and go to World. And we've got our rotation around the Z. Let's adjust that and see what happens to our environment. Like that, and we can see it's all looking pretty nice. It's looking from the top. It's looking quite realistic. So now what we're going to do is set up a camera. Just going to take it out of cycles and put it into EV. It's much quicker to get everything right in EV first. So now we've got that. Let's add a camera. Now, there's multiple ways you can add a camera. You can go Shift A and then come down here to Camera and add a camera and move it around and lock it to a view. But I've got a little add-on that I like, Easy Camera, and it's quite effective in that if I come here on the Z and position my view, I can just click Add Camera, and now it's added a camera. I can click on that and it's going to show me the camera view. Let's click out of camera. Let's grab, like here, get across here, let's pull out another window. Let's rotate that around. Let's grab our easy camera. Let's pull it up like that. And let's change. It doesn't matter, we can just, let's change windows. So here, press N to get rid of that, press T to get rid of that one, and come into the camera view, like that. Let's turn our render on. Let's come in here and go to render preview, and let's grab our easy camera and move it around, like that. It's currently aligned to our aspect ratio here in our output properties. And then we can render our view like this, and we'll note that everything is sharp in our view. And we can actually add, change our focal length quite easily here and add depth of field. You can also do that by selecting camera. You can turn on depth of field and you can adjust the focal length here, but easy camera brings it up in this area. It makes life a lot easier. It also makes life easy to change cameras quite quickly. I'm just going to delete that camera. Oh, that was both cameras. Oops. Control Z. Okay, so what we're going to do is we want to control our depth of field. So in order to control our depth of field, I'm going to bring in an empty. So Shift A, come here to empty, it won't show in our rendering, and add a plane axis. And with that plane axis, we can grab that empty and let's rename it to focus empty. Focus empty camera 1, because we might make several focus focus empties for each camera. And then let's bring it up like that. And this is going to control our depth of field in our view. So let's just bring it onto our shoe. Say, bring it here in onto the packaging, and that we want this focal area to be in focus. Okay, so in our camera view, we're going to go and select this focus empty, so turn depth of field on. You can see it's all gone out of focus. Our object is the focus. Let's type focus empty camera 1. Now it's come back into focus. And we can adjust our f-stop and turn it right down, and you can see here that the depth of field is quite affected in our rendering. We can turn our f-stop up, and now everything is coming into focus. This is a great way that we can control the focus of our render. So if we go to render out this image, let's put our rendering into cycles. We can see this render coming out here, and all of our texture. Our packaging is a little bit shadowed. Maybe we'd want to change that for a top view. Let's just turn it around, go the other way, like that. Depending on what we want. Actually, I want the side and the front of the shoe lit up. Yeah, probably like that. It's probably quite good. Okay, so let's just try rendering that out. I've got a note here, a 1024 sample rendering going on. And now we're rendering out our image with our rock background. Because we're so close up to this rock, we're probably better off having the 8K resolution than the 4K resolution on that. I'm just going to close that rendering. Now, we could set up another camera. So in our camera view, let's get out of that. Let's rotate this around and come in and sort of work out a view that we might want of our shoe. Let's say somewhat like, I don't know how we want that. Let's say something like this. It's looking good. So let's open Easy Cam. Let's go add a camera, camera 2. Camera 2's turned on. Let's go to the viewport for camera 2. Let's just grab our camera 2 and pull it back a bit like this. That looks good. Now what we want to do is we want to put a backplate in. Now we might just have a coloured backplate, but we want to have a gradient. So what we can do in here is go Shift A and add an image, mesh plane, and we need to pick something that we want as our image for our background. So let's see, I don't think I haven't planned anything here. Let's look into, say, temp. Get a preview of our images. Don't know what I want as a background for this. Maybe I need to go and choose one. I don't know. Let's choose this Adobe stock running image. Maybe might suffice, or even this one here, this background image. So let's go import image, and let's move this back and S for scale, scale that up, and then around the world, so on the global, and here on the 3D cursor, let's go R, Z, and line this up with our camera view, like that. And then let's S scale it down a bit and move it up. S scale it down, move it up. Let's go into local and move it around. Okay, so we've got a background now. And what we want to do is let's use the same focus empty for camera 2. So turn depth of field on, and let's choose our focus. So use the same focus empty. And now what we can see is that we're focused here on our shoe, and all this foreground is out of focus. Some of our background is out of focus. If we turn it up, we can see that more of our image is in focus. Let's just shift that around. That's why we'd want more than one focus empty. So let's select that focus empty and let's bring it to the front of the shoe. So now the front of the shoe is in focus. We can see that all through here is in focus and this is out. And then we can render out our image. And we've got our image placed onto a rock environment, and we've got a background image that's creating a textural element that might bear some relationship to what it is that we're doing. I might change the color of that. It's a bit mono, really, isn't it? And the other thing we might just look at is that the rocks look a bit jagged. Let's just select it and let's go Control 2 and add some subdivision to the rock, and right click on the rock just while we're adding the subdivision. Right click and go Shade Smooth. Okay, now the rock is looking way better. Yeah, look how much better the rock is looking. So we've added onto that rock, we've added 2 levels of subdivision. So let's just render that out. And we can see there that the rock is looking far more realistic in terms of how smooth it is instead of being quite jagged. So there we have it. The only other thing that we could do to do our rendering is that we could put a color graded background in here. So let's just pull this across. Instead of that being an image, it could just be a color. So what we can do is actually come in here and disconnect both of these, disconnect the alpha, disconnect the base color, and then here I could choose a color that might be complementary to my shoe. And then I can also just render that out. And we'll get a complementary, tonal, monochromatic kind of rendering. And it's important to get the use Adobe color or some other color matching tool to get the right tone and tonality of color to work with what it is that you have in your render. But here we can see that now we've rendered out our image. We've placed it in a rock scene. We're giving it some context to these. This shoe is a soft, agile shoe for running over rocky surfaces or terrains for some kind of cross running. maybe, or it could be, you know, here it's a silicone molded shoe for walking across, you know, boulders and rocks, or things that are, say, walking on the beach and rocky environments on the beach, for example. It's completely up to you, but the context of how the shoe is shown is what's going to tell the viewer, you know, what's important and what this shoe's actually doing. And we can see here in our depth of field and our image that it's running quite tight through here. The background is out of focus, the text's out of focus, the tag is out of focus back here. These rocks are in focus, and then in the foreground, you know, these rocks are out of focus. So we're bringing, you know, some element of detail to our rendering. Okay, thanks a lot, and I'll see you on the next class during the week.